Welcome, one and all, to another edition of the Defo Show with Lubie here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network, brought to you by Water Cleanup of Florida. It feels like the heat's coming back, and we know what that can do to our homes or offices. But no worries, you're in great hands with Water Cleanup of Florida. If you do have any water or fire issues, 954-579-0356 is the number you should call. They will take care of any issues you have. Again, 954-579-0356. 03-560. We're fantastic for my wife and I with our townhouse. They'll do the same thing for you with over 60 years of combined experience between Michael, Robert, George, their entire team, plus with certified insured contractors on staff. They will not only correct any issues you have, they'll make it look brand new. Again, 954-579-0356. Check them out online, WCUFL.com, or on the socials at Water Cleanup FL. Dealing with service companies can be a chore, is actually an understatement. It can be a pain in the butt. Dealing with Water Cleanup of Florida is glorious. They, again, were great for my family. They'll be great for yours. Water Cleanup of Florida. If you have the schmutz, they have the guts. The Miami Heat, the Florida Panthers, since the end of last year to now, have had lots of guts. We've seen lots of injuries with the Miami Heat. We've seen the Florida Panthers take the hockey world by storm. Both are playing extremely well right now. We talked with Mr. 5 Reasons Sports himself, Ethan Scoop, Mr. 5 Reasons Sports himself, Ethan Scoop Skolnick, about the Panthers and lots of Miami Heat plus NBA talk right here, the Devo Show with the Lubie on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
Oh, beautiful. This is great. Well, we don't even have to show how little we know about hockey because we can bring on Scoop Skolnick here. Scoop, thanks for bailing us out, man. Yeah.
Are you saying I know less? Come on, don't do that.
No,
more.
I mean, you're all over it with 5 Reasons. You got 100 guys covering the Panthers, don't you? In fact, did you have people covering FAU by any chance at this game the other day against Tulane? Was that were there from some 5 Reasons people?
We did not, but we will do some coverage of FAU as they move into the tournament. But no, we do we do cover the Panthers. Alex Baumgartner does a great job. He's our primary person covering them. He's at all the home games. We actually cover them more than the local newspapers do.
Yeah,
so.
Well, I mean,
it's one of the local newspapers.
Yeah.
Well.
No, it's amazing that they don't have beat writers. Jim Sarney was bemoaning the fact that they don't have beat writers for this stuff, and I'm like, well, what a shame. I mean, there's so many different things happening. So it's so good. I mean, you picked up the ball and you're running with it, and it's been very fortuitous that you went ahead and made this move, which was fantastic. I will say this: you would have been heartened by it. I ended up, believe it or not, going to the press conference after the game. I hadn't been to an FAU game. I think I might have called one. For Sunshine Network when it first came into existence, circa early 90s. But, I hadn't been there. I got caught up a little bit in the run. We've talked to Dusty May. He seems brilliant and destined for, maybe richer and greener pastures next year. But it's amazing to think, that a Final Four program emerged from that situation. And then B, you would have been very impressed with the young press corps that was on hand.
Yes.
And you work with a lot of these young guys, which is great, Scoop. But it was a well-run, well-organized press conference where I'd say 10 different guys rattled off relevant questions to the coach. And none of them asked my question, which I was afraid to because I didn't want to interrupt the flow of things. Can you really be satisfied with a win, no cover? None of them even went in that direction. But very impressive. It was nice to see these young kids doing it like that.
Yeah, no. Well, the first thing you mentioned, though, the fact that a program like that emerged in Boca Raton, of all places, across from the J. Alexanders and the P.F. Changs, is remarkable. And I was there for training camp this year for the Heat. And it's just, I mean, it's not Duke, it's not North Carolina.
No,
I mean, it's just, hey, wait, there's some parking in the back, and where do you walk up the steps, and that's it. There's nothing there. So it's really crazy what Dusty May's done there, and when you look at what's happening at University of Miami this year, which they've really struggled after last year. I give credit to FAU for sustaining it from last season because I think both of them were Both of them are kind of in that 9 to 20 range in terms of preseason rankings, but only FAU is held up. So it's been a great story. And when I was there for camp, I watched Spo and Pat walk up and chat with Dusty for a little while and seemed totally engaged in it. Spo loves those conversations with college coaches and other coaches around. So I give them a hell of a lot of credit. I do. It's been a great story.
You get the feeling we've spoken with Dusty May a couple of times, and once on a little bit more of a casual level than just coming on for an interview, where he tends to be sort of cliche oriented. I don't know, very, very much like Mike Norvell at FSU, where you get the sense this is a good guy and he wants to talk to you, but he's not really saying anything that's going to be earth shattering in terms of your understanding of the game or the program. But what a polished guy! I mean, he's very impressive, very Spolstra-like, is he not? Dusty May.
Yeah.
I mean, he I believe is going to be highly successful, not just based on what happened last year, but he just strikes me as the type of guy that really has everything buttoned down and knows what he's doing. All right, what's happening with this Miami Heat team? I have to say I'm blown away, surprised at the efficient manner in which they're just rattling off win after win after win in spite of whatever their circumstances are. It's been pretty amazing so far this year, would you say?
Yeah, well, I tweeted this last night. They and the Panthers are doing the thing again.
Yeah.
Where they start to turn up around this time of year. Panthers are 17-2 in their last 19, and the Heat are 11-3, and it should be 12-3 after tonight. They got Detroit coming in. They've got Detroit and Washington 5 times this month.
Wow.
So they can rack up some wins here, and they got a couple challenging games. They go to OKC on Friday, and they have a game in Dallas. Mavs aren't playing well, but that should be. It's always challenging for them to go into Dallas. They've got Denver at home coming up in about a week and a half, but they otherwise their schedule is getting softer, and so they've gotten through the worst of it. And hopefully for them, the worst of it with the injuries. Now they don't have Hero, Love, and Richardson again tonight. But honestly, they've got 11 to 12 rotation players now. So when they're missing 3, it's not really the end of the world. And in some ways, it makes things easier. They've played better without a full roster this year than they have with a full roster. And that's going to lead to some questions when everybody's healthy again and they get in the playoff series and how they integrate, particularly 14 back into the mix and kind of figure out who's closing. We did a podcast last night on 5 on the Floor. Who are the guaranteed closers on this team? Because that's all they care about. They don't care about the starters. They care about the closers, and fans fixate on the starters. But the Heat, that's not the direction that they go. And it's Bam, it's Jimmy, and beyond that, I mean, it could be any of 5 or 6 different people. I think it could be Jaquez. Caleb Martin has picked up his play a lot over the past month. Tyler obviously is a discussion point. Duncan, so they and Rozier. So they have a lot of different options that they could go. And I said in the preseason that this team is deeper than last year's team. And it's deeper now than it was at the beginning of the season because they've added Rozier, they've added DeLon Wright, and we've seen the emergence of Jaquez and now Jovic. So I like their team a lot. I think, and to me, it just came down to one thing, and I said this before the All-Star break. What Jimmy are they getting?
Yep.
If they're going to get the Jimmy they get lately, if that is still in him, they can play with anybody, and Boston does not want to see them. If they're going to get the Jimmy who kind of takes nights or halves off, then, and I'm not talking about full games off, they're better when he doesn't play than when he plays and half-asses it. If they're going to get that Jimmy, they can't hang with anyone because the rest of the team falls apart. So they've gotten the Jimmy lately, and he's on a ramp up like he was last year. It looks like he hasn't lost a step. And like I said, he is the one guy, if you ask Celtics fans, you can see this on Twitter right now, Celtics media, he's the only person that they're afraid of in the Eastern Conference. And that's so we'll see if they match up in the playoffs, what that looks like.
Has anybody determined? I mean, is it psychological stuff? What is it?
What happens with him?
Yeah, I mean,
because he's a massive competitor. Like all you hear is stories.
What is the problem?
Competitive as anyone.
He's a troll guy. He's just like I mean, he's developed. He's tried to explain it in a recent interview with Chris Haynes, but when he explains it, I feel like he's making it up as he goes along. I just think that he needs certain things to trigger him and motivate him, and it's just part of the deal for the Heat. They manage it as best they can. He's more of a challenge, I think, to manage than any star they've ever had, but he's also provided as much of a payoff as just about any star that they've ever had. So, whatever he needs to do to get himself in the right frame of mind to perform at this level. But it's just, it is kind of crazy that the former number 30 pick, who had to transfer out of junior college, who wasn't heavily recruited, who does not have any elite skill set. Like, he's not uber athletic. He's not, obviously lately he's been a great shooter, but he that's not traditionally been his thing over the course of his career, that he's able to just turn it on and embarrass people whenever he feels like it. With Dwayne, you got it, right? Like, he understood it, like early in his career, like that. He was a
freak,
ridiculous athlete. LeBron, obviously. With Jimmy, it's just, I don't know. He just he puts his mind to it, and he's like, okay, I'm going to destroy you tonight. And he does, and if he's doing that, they believe they can beat anybody.
He's a pain in the ass too. I mean, if you were a defender, I mean, you have him stopped. Does another 6 dipsy doodle moves, and then all of a sudden you're up in the air and he gets fouled when he had no chance to make a basket. And very, very frustrating guy when he has his mindset. I mean, can you see it, Scoop? You're at a lot of these games. I would imagine almost all of them. And, can you tell before the game by the body language, we're getting the wrong guy here tonight?
Well, you can't tell before the game, but you can tell very early in the game. We have gotten to the point where, you are looking at the first 3-4 minutes. If he's being passive and distributing, you can tell that it's not going to be one of those nights where he turns out. And it's funny is that there have been a couple games this year. The Indiana game strikes me where there was a game at home. He didn't do much in the first half. He had like 30 in the second half against a team that doesn't play any defense. So there are rare occasions where he'll do that. But otherwise, you do know in the first 3 or 4 minutes, like you get a sense of it, and whether or not he's going to fully engage. And Spo's trying to manage the minutes a little differently. He's always done the thing where he brings him in with like between 6 to 8 minutes left in the fourth. He's started some fourth quarters lately. Like, you can tell that Spo is experimenting with some things. That's part of the Jovic starting lineup that they've done of late. But I don't think that Eric's shown all of his cards at this point, and honestly, I don't think Jimmy's shown all of his cards at this point. There's a little bit more there, and the one thing about the East that is set up so nicely for them is that there's really one team to target.
That's it.
There's one team to target, and they know what they have to do to beat that team. But there's nobody else in the East that scares them. The Knicks. Looked good, but they can't stay healthy now. Like, and Tibbs is going to run the other guys into the ground before they get healthy. And Cleveland is now falling apart physically. Now Mitchell's hurt. Now Strus is finally missing some time. Philadelphia, obviously, without Embiid, they're trying, but I don't see how they can stay above water in their situation. And Milwaukee, look, they've had some games where the individual talent of Giannis and Lillard has taken over, but there's clear cracks with that team, and the head coach is no match for Eric Spoelstra. So I don't feel like it's Boston. It's just Boston, and it doesn't matter when they play them. They're going to see them in the East, and if they win that series, they'll be back in the finals again.
Wow.
You sort of touched on Hero. You said number 14, and it's funny, when he's played, he's put up good numbers, and they've been up and down when he's played. But again, this thing where he misses a lot of games is rearing its ugly head, and it's happening again near the end of the year as well, when they thought, okay, he missed early because of the injury last year, but he's going to play. And then the last couple weeks, he's been in and out of the lineup. Like, you sort of were like, you didn't call him by name. You said number 14. What is it?
Because he's so polarizing. It's like, I feel like he's the Tua of the Heat. And I feel like when I say Hero, we're all going to be struck down, by millions on Twitter. So I've just got to the number. Look, I've been a big supporter of Tyler's, and because I don't like a lot of the narratives because they're wrong. I mean, he does care absolutely about the game. He puts the work in. He's not Hollywood in that regard. And a lot of the injuries have not been his fault. I mean, they're not injury prone injuries, like, diving for a loose ball and breaking your hand like that.
Lubie blames him on that.
I was frustrated because
he says, "Why is he hustling now?"
Yeah, we've discussed that one over and over. We're stepping on a foot. I mean, Jimmy stepped on a foot. I mean, that right. I mean, and missed time because of it. This latest foot injury that Hero has, honestly, he's kind of popped out of nowhere. He talked about how it's something that they were managing before. I mean, this came after the knee, but I don't characterize him as injury prone the way that I characterize guys that are out of shape or not putting in the effort, and that's why they get hurt. But with that being said, availability is an ability, and and the problem now is that what are we, 60 games into the season, and we've still not seen the Bam, Tyler, Jimmy thing click.
No.
And they haven't played that much together, particularly down the stretch of games. And when they've started and played together, the Heat have a losing record. And so I think that's why there is a point where even myself, I'm like, okay, I said when Tyler comes back, he starts and he closes. Well, now I'm coming off that a little bit. Like maybe he still starts, but maybe he doesn't always close, because I just think that we've seen enough of a sample size with Duncan that he just makes everybody better, and he's available. He's available, like that, right? He plays, and their lineups are all better empirically. Like when I'm arguing for Tyler to start over Duncan, I don't have a case empirically, because empirically, like Duncan, they're just, the Duncan Bam numbers are better, the Duncan Jimmy numbers are better, the Duncan with everybody numbers are better, but it's that Tyler, theoretically has a higher upside than Duncan. He's a more skilled overall player than Duncan, even though Duncan's made improvements there. But if he's not on the court, if they get on a roll here, if Tyler misses another week or two and they're still winning, let's say they go into OKC and they win with this starting lineup, okay? Let's say they go into Dallas and win. You have a hard time making an argument to change it. You just are. And so I think Tyler's got a little bit of an uphill climb when he comes back.
I'm a Tyler Hero fan. It looks to me, as you said, Scoop, that he worked to try and improve his game, much like we've seen changes in Duncan Robinson's overall ability and his floor game in general as compared to what it was a couple of years ago. So I have a lot of respect for him. I think he's bought into a little bit of the Heat culture, even though he's got some Hollywood elements to him. And it doesn't look like he would suffer right when it came to finding a chick, let's say. Much, and I don't know if that's women weak in legs, if that's part of the factor there. I guess people thought that maybe he went a little Hollywood his second year, but I like the way he's performed overall, and I think he gives them a different dynamic on the court, where you have a more feared scorer who can bail them out in spots where the other team has played good defense for 20 seconds, and then somehow the ball ends up in this kid's hands, and he's able to make something happen where other guys might not be as reliable in that situation. All right, as you look at and whatever happened to Darrell Wright, by the way, that struck me when you mentioned. Is this Wright that's on the Heat roster his brother, his son?
Yes.
Who is he? I mean,
no, he's his brother. Delon. When Darrell was, this is how old we are. When Darrell was 18, Darrell was drafted when he was 18.
Yes.
If you remember, Darrell,
a rare Riley move to draft a high school kid.
Yes.
Well, yeah, but the context of it at the time was they were coming off that run with Dwayne as a rookie, and they had a young team. Dwayne, Caron Butler, Lamar Odom, the team that went from 0-7 to 42-40, and actually took Indiana to 6 games in the second round. A really fun team, and Caron and that group. But then, like a month after that, so they drafted Darrell over Jameer Nelson, who was the more polished player, played 4 years of college at St. Joe's. And actually, the funny part about that is the one who was most against taking Jameer, because he didn't want a small point guard, was Stan. And then Stan ended up getting Jameer in Orlando and loved Jameer, and he was his point guard. In fact, he overplayed Jameer in the finals that year instead of Rafer Alston after Jameer came back for injury. It might have been the reason that the Magic lost the 2009 finals, because Jameer was rusty. So there's a whole bunch of history and context of this. So they drafted Darrell, and then they traded for Shaq. And the whole timeline of that team changed, and because they didn't have Caron, and they weren't a young team anymore. They were Shaq's team with 2016. And so Darrell ended up in the G League, or at the time it was the D League. I actually spent some time with him. They used to play over it. Instead of Sioux Falls, you could actually, instead of going across the country, you just had to go across Alligator Alley. They were over Hero at Fort Myers. And so, and then Darrell, he had kind of a choppy first stint with the Heat. Became a pretty good role player in some other places. Came back very late in his career, but always had a relationship with the Heat organization, with UD, with others in the front office, and of course with Dwayne. He was kind of Dwayne's little brother. But DeLon was legitimately Darrell's little brother, and so DeLon was 11 when Darrell was drafted. He's 7 years younger, so he would be around a lot. And we talked to him about that on the podcast. He's a good guy. He's really grown up, and he's been a good role player over the course of his career. He's never really stuck somewhere, but he's kind of made defense his calling card. And if they need him, I don't think he's going to be a regular on this team as long as Rozier is healthy, and especially with Richardson coming back at some point. But if they need someone to guard the point of attack, if you've got a Dame Lillard who's going off, I mean, you look at some of the guards in the East, they may have to deal with Maxey, Lillard, Drew Holiday, right down the line. Mitchell, you could throw DeLon right on him for 5, 6, 7 minutes in a playoff game, and he had pretty good results against Heroes. So when they 2 years ago, so I feel like it's a good move. He wants to be here, and he seems like a good guy who fits right into their quote unquote culture. So I was in favor of it, but yeah, it just honestly the whole thing, Defo, just makes me feel ancient because I mean, he was 11 years old. Like, he was 11, literally 11 years old hanging out. It's just like Tim Hardaway Jr. I remember Timmy Jr. running around, Zoe's kid running around. Now, Zoe's kid's like too old for G League now. Like, we've all got.
What happened at a time, Scoop? Yeah,
exactly.
Have you been to Sioux Falls? I would imagine. I want to say yes to this. That you've probably in your adventures of trying to find the story. No, never been.
No, I have not. I was told by Mike Miller, who was actually born there, that they have a great Applebee's. It's better than most Applebee's around the country.
And it's fucking freezing there. I mean, all the time.
Well, that too, it is that, and that's basically the town hall. So I've really not had a desire to go to Super Bowl. I will say it's one of the 5 states in the country I've not been to, so I probably should make it up there at some point, or not.
Well, and it was great. I was watching a little feature, one of these Inside the Heat things one night, and they were talking about these two-way players that go to Sioux Falls, and you just mentioned they used to be like right across the Alligator Alley there, which I would imagine would be far more desirable. From an environmental standpoint, because I mean, you have to feel like you were released, like Navalny would have been released from Siberia, when you end up getting the call that they need you for 10 days in Miami as opposed to being in Sioux Falls. How does that work, by the way, where a guy is on a two-way deal? Can you explain that for our many listeners out there, including me? What the hell is going on with that? What is that?
Well, there's a certain number of games that you can be with the active team. So with the big club.
Okay.
I think it's 50 now, before you have to convert the player. So that's why you see a lot of this shuttling back and forth. The Heat were very much in favor, and they pushed the league to go from 2 to 3 in terms of how many two ways that you get. So it's a much bigger roster than it used to be, because it used to be 12 and that was it. And now it's 15 and you get the 3 two ways. So it's like when Heat fans are sitting here complaining about the Heat not using the last roster spot because they're trying to stay, because that little, the $10,000 is going to push the Heat over the salary tax, or the luxury tax, or the second apron or whatever, and create all these consequences. And Heat fans are complaining. I'm like, you're talking about like the 18th guy. Like, yes. I mean, seriously, like if we're, I mean, like everybody was pissed about UD taking that spot all those years, and like this year when they had the 7-game losing streak, like you would have liked to have had UD in the locker room to kick someone's ass. Essentially, it would have been worth giving him that roster spot. So people make a big deal of that stuff, but I mean the Heat like it because they like the flexibility of having these additional players that they can develop and not lose. Because what was happening was it wasn't like baseball where you essentially owned the players' rights. Like you didn't own, like Sioux Falls has a ton of guys the Heat are looking at, but they just lost one. Like Jamari Bouye, who was in their summer league, who they liked, but didn't like enough, it feels like. They didn't give him one of the two ways. They had one before, he went to Portland, signed with them briefly on a 10-day, came back, They put him on a two-way. Excuse me, they didn't put him on a two-way, but they put him in Sioux Falls, and he just got signed by San Antonio on a two-way, and now Heat fans are freaked out that he and Wemby are going to be the next great duo in the league. The Heat, again, they like the kid, but they didn't like him enough to make sure they retained him. But yeah, you got a lot of players down there that they're monitoring, but they don't. It's not like AAA or something like that where they own their rights. So they just have these three right now. It's Kane, Swider, and Alondas Williams that they've got on the two ways, and I like that the NBA did this because I feel like if you're going to develop a guy, you should be able to keep the guy, so
yes.
So it's worked out pretty well for them. And Eric and Adam Simon have pretty much been the ones who've pushed this philosophy forward.
Lubie,
so I know you touched on the Bucks, and you did sort of an East recap, which is sort of what I would have said about the East. You didn't mention the West.
Yeah, well, that's a different story. Like I'm not guaranteeing anything once they, if they get to the finals. Like to me, it's Boston or Miami in the finals. I don't know who the hell is coming out of the West. Okay. I really don't. I mean, honestly, it should be Denver. I
was gonna say, like, it feels like we're doing the thing with Denver again because Jokic sort of paces himself. But when you watch Denver play and they give a shit, like that 2 minutes, what were they down by 2 versus the Lakers, and the Laker fans were giddy. Yeah. And in 2 minutes, I think personally went on a 13-0 run because, again, remember, he's a great passer, so he doesn't give a shit about scoring. Right. But he wants to fucking score. We saw it. He doesn't goddamn miss. Literally, the finals was like, dude, miss a fucking shot. And they were up like 12 in like 3 minutes. It's like, okay. Yeah.
Right.
I watch them and it's like, and the Thunder, I give them credit, and they're not just some young team. They are deep. They play defense. SGA is a legit like top 5-6 player now. But you watch the Nuggets and it's like, that's what I thought the Heat were going to be. Like, they just, when they want to win, it seems like it's hard for me to fathom who the hell is going to beat them. Like, that's sort of my problem.
Yeah, I'm with you. And there's some teams that are ahead of schedule. You mentioned OKC. I don't want to deal with them in a year or two. They feel very much like the OKC team that was built before.
Yep.
Except this time they have even more assets. Like Sam Presti hasn't even deployed his first round picks yet. He's got like 18 first round picks over the next 4 years, and he can trade those for anything he wants if that's the direction he wants to go. And they already have their sort of 3-man core with Jalen and with Chet and with SGA. So like they're loaded. Minnesota to me is ahead of schedule in some ways. I don't trust them completely. And then the Clippers, if they're healthy, can they make it through 4 rounds healthy? Like, because their talent is overwhelming if they're healthy, but I don't know if they'll be there. And we're not going to talk about the Lakers and Golden State because that's all ESPN does all day long in their playing team. So there's no.
Are they 1 and 2 in the West right now? You would swear that was the case
in the ESPN standings, and I'm wondering when they both lose in the play-in, and Lakers are more likely to lose than Golden State in the play-in, but I think they both might. If ESPN just stops covering, like, is that it? Like, do they go
talking Lakers?
The Cancun Championship. I'm not really sure. But look, Dallas has a puncher's shot at the very least. If because of Luka. But getting back to Denver, I was a little surprised that they didn't upgrade the bench at all. And to me, that's because if you look at they only played 8 last year, really. And of the 8, they played 2 left. Jeff Green and Bruce Brown left, and they've replaced them with young guys who've done a good job. Like they're kind of doing the Heat thing, like what the Heat did with Jaquez, where they're drafting NBA ready guys late in the first round, and they're collecting those picks, and they're figuring, let's get these guys on their rookie contracts because, as you said, Jokic makes everybody better, so he's going to accelerate their timeline.
Yep.
But their depth is a question to me. And I think that, and look, Jamal has had trouble staying healthy.
Yep.
You talk about Hero, but it's been more significant injuries with Murray. And if he gets hurt, they're done. They're done. They're just a totally different team when he doesn't play. So their starting lineup is the best in basketball. It fits perfectly. KCP's been a great fit there. Aaron Gordon may give Jimmy more problems than any defender in the league right now. So, no, you don't want to see them. If they get to the finals, they're winning the championship. But, I mean, could Luka go nuts on them? Could Shai Gilgeous-Alexander go nuts on them? Could the Clippers, if Kawhi is playoff Kawhi, beat them? Yes. I don't think they're invincible, But I do think they'd beat Boston. I said it yesterday, and I'm going out on a bit of a limb here. I'll take the field. Everybody's taking Boston right now. I'll take the field. I just don't think Tatum and Brown have it in them. I don't.
You and Lubie are on the same page.
Thing.
Yeah.
It's what I've said all year.
When it matters,
and he sees Porzingis being carried off on a stretcher somewhere in the postseason also.
He might be. He might be.
I can't help but think every time I see Jaime Jaquez play, he reminds me, has a similar hairdo as this guy did at the time. But when I used to run full at the Hollywood YMCA with Tommy Chong, very similar slashing type of game also as Chong, who was not a bad basketball player. You wouldn't necessarily think so, but the guy had some game. But they're one and the same if you went back like 50 years with the hairstyle and everything. A hell of a player, it turns out. Was this guy ready to go or what? That turned out to be a very fortuitous pick there by the Heat. All right, Scoop, always a pleasure. 5 reasons. How do people get on that and get all your great stuff, including 5 on the floor and all of this tremendous local coverage that you've generated where the papers have just thrown up their hands and said, yeah, sure. How do people find you?
Well, the hub is 5 Reasons Sports Twitter. So if you go there, you'll find pretty much everything because we tweet it all out. But subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're getting close to 26,000 subs there. So check that out. That's the 5 Reasons Sports YouTube channel. And our leading podcasts are 5 on the Floor, of course, on the Heat and the NBA, 3 yards per carry. On the Dolphins, also all Dolphins podcasts. We added that one to our menu with Alan Poupart and Omar Kelly. That's now under our umbrella. And we've got Messi and Company is our Inter Miami podcast. But by the name, you can tell what they're talking about most of the time. By the way, the local paper doesn't cover them either.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah. I mean, it's a big story.
I don't want to get into a whole thing with Sardi on this because Sardi will ask me why I'm not covering the women's pickleball.
Does he do this to you?
I
don't feel so bad about it.
Yeah. No. He does it to me all the time, and I love Jim. I love Jim, and my daughter loves Jim.
Love Jim.
But here's the thing: it's like when he's asking why. I mean, like I do have to bring in some views and revenue at some point. Like the Heat and Dolphins stuff is going to do better than And I'm a tennis fan. So I get it with Sarni. I understand it. Like I like a lot of the things he likes, but I just you gotta play the hits sometimes. But unlike the papers, we do cover the other stuff too. We do cover the
women's junior varsity spearfishing from Costa Rica.
He's telling me to set my alarm at 3:45 in the morning to make sure we have someone there. I mean,
some obscure soccer game. I mean, he's a trip like that. Okay, so I feel better now that he does that to you too, because he's saying that we don't talk about anything but football. And there's something wrong with the program as a result. But, we're not doing features on Caitlin Clark's backup who never sees the floor.
Right. I mean, at a certain point, Taylor Swift's going to play the hits, right? Like, you gotta.
That's it. I mean, what's going to make me some money out of this? Exactly.
Thank you. You just said, I didn't want to say that.
Yeah, well, we have no problem saying it.
That's it. 99% of our revenue is Heat and Dolphins. But I will say that the Panthers are making that interesting.
They'll catch on late if they get to the finals again. People will have Panther fever, and they'll be all throwing rats again, and the dollar store will see its stock go up. Scoop, always a pleasure, and thanks for having us as part of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. I noticed we weren't mentioned in any of the top categories.
Well, we don't do the stuff that these people do.
We'll throw you some stuff. You always do well when you appear on your own network. It's great, which we like. So this will be highly viewed on 5 Reasons. So thanks, Ethan. Always a pleasure, my friend.
I am heading over to the Women's Pickleball Championship. I'll see you later.
Yeah, we'll see if Sarni's there, man. I mean, he's not showing up at these things himself. That's the funny part of it. All right, thanks. Appreciate it.
We always have a great time talking with Ethan Skolnick. You all know that here, 5 Reasons. He is the founder, president, CEO, Mr. 5 Reasons. He's on a lot of what you see here on 5 Reasons Sports. Once in a while, we like to have a conversation with him. He, like we say, is as good and knowledgeable as inside on the Heat as anyone. Plus, he has a great opinion on not only the Miami Heat, Florida Panthers as well, but the NBA at large. Miami Heat playing really good ball, like Scoop just said. We call him Scoop. Winners of 11 of 14. Pistons, Thunder, a lot of interesting games on the horizon. They're sitting there at the 7th seed, but I think they're within a game and a half of the 4, within 3 to 4 games of the 3. To me, it feels like they'll settle in at a top 4 or 5 slot. The East, as Ethan said, seems wide open outside the Celtics. And even the Celtics are not a team the Heat are scared of. Seems like the Celtics may not be scared of the Heat, but they definitely don't want to face them. this is that last quarter of the NBA season. Really excited to see what the Heat do. Really have loved seeing what they're doing lately. And Jimmy Butler seems to be turning it on, as Ethan said, as anyone can see. Hopefully he keeps that going into the postseason. We'll talk lots about the Miami Heat and the South Florida sports scene, and just what's going on in basketball and hockey. NFL Combine just happened. The NFL Draft is about a little over a month away. Check us out each and every morning. We'll talk about all those things and more. 8 to 9 on South Florida Live, the YouTube channel, and Facebook. Check us out. We do a daily podcast, nofilter.net. Just Google Caffeine TV, The Morning Briefing. We do a national podcast. We talked with legendary Lynyrd Skynyrd drummer Artemis Pyle on the Believe Network, BLEAV.com. Search After Hours. And our South Florida skewed sports right here, the Defo Show with the Lubie on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
Hey, folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs, unmatched. Steaks, hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in Plantation, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.